Hello everyone and welcome back to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today is episode 165, and as you may have noticed in the title, today I'm going to be reviewing a super classic underground trance CD. This is Tiesto's In Search of Sunrise. I'm actually not going to be reviewing the CD itself, but I'm going to be reviewing the vinyls of my favorite tracks from this CD. That's why I titled the episode the Tiesto In Search of Sunrise Volume 1 Influence. These are records that I've accumulated from listening to the CD and being inspired by it. But we can talk about the CD for a bit. This is the first CD in the ISOS series. And I would argue, I think most fans, most hardcore Tiesto fans would agree that this is the first one. It's similar to the first movie in a great trilogy, right? If they hit a huge home run on the first swing, and then they try to come back and hit the same home run again, maybe they hit like a triple or a double, but they can't. It's like for some reason they can't ever seem to really recapture the magic of the first one. And I will say, I think part of the reason that Volume 1 stands up so well against some of the other versions is that the track selection that's on here, as you can imagine, is almost solely confined to 1999, right? It was a representation of what was new and coming out in that year. That was a goddamn good year for trance music. I mean, that, to me, right? Like, I have a friend, Tim Humphrey, and he would say that trance was already over by 1999, and what I'm listening to on here is progressive trance or something like that. So you can argue about genres, but to me, like this 1999 era of Paul Oakenfold and Tiesto, this was the golden year to be listening to trance. There was something in the music. Like, if you contrast this music with modern music, there's just something magical in the construction of the tracks that really isn't there in the modern tracks. There's something about the rawness of the equipment that was being used. The vocalists that tend to appear in classic records like this are more refined, like they were professional. It wasn't just somebody trying their best to be a vocalist, but they weren't really up to it. And the people that were making music were like well into the scene. Like, later on in this episode, I'll mention Matt Darey. I mean, Matt Darey, he was I mean, you could say, all right, maybe he's a little bit commercial leaning, but he was a god of a producer, in my opinion. And he was professional, right? Like absolute top shelf stuff. And now in modern times, you have producers that are producing and they're just not really that skilled, and the average level of tracks that are coming out, it has decreased. And I think that's why a lot of, like, a modern mix CD that would try to recreate this vibe, the reason that it would struggle is because it's working with 2025 music and not 1999 music. So in the 1999 pool of music, like, the great tracks there, the quality of them is so 5-star that it hurts. And in modern times, I just don't know if you can recapture that original innocence. It's almost impossible to get it back. So for today, props to Tiesto for dropping this series. I might add some commentary later on about how I feel about the entire ISOS series. Right now I have 1 through 5, and I've noticed as I've been going through that the quality has gone down, right? That's kind of what I was getting at earlier, where you hit a home run and then maybe you hit a triple and then a double. I would say that the average quality of the ISOS series was kind of like a bear market, like just kind of inching its way down as it went on. I'm not even sure if I should buy volume 6 and 7, because then you're getting out into like 2007, 2008, and to me, by then it was just over. That's not really the vibe that I'm going for at this point. So anyways, 5 records from this that have really stuck with me and that I think are total gems. Let's get started. The first is this one. This is York, Reachers of Civilization. This is track 1 on the CD. Love the cover art on this, right? You got this kind of like gray post-apocalyptic backdrop here. Some kind of like transformer looking robot. Is he from the future? Is he from somewhere else? There's a monologue in the beginning of the original mix where there's like a Native American voice that describes what the Reachers are, and it's almost like sci-fi speak. And my main reason for loving this track is the lead synth in it. I think so. Tiesto can be a little bit rough in terms of programming, and actually very rough. He made a good choice on this by making this the first track, because you start out with the Native American monologue that I was talking about, and then right into a very energetic and hopping synth line. I love that synth line. If you listen to that synth line while you're driving around in the car with the windows down on a nice day, I mean, it's like the perfect accompaniment to that energy. It reminds me a lot of Johnny Vicious. If you think about Johnny Vicious records that were really big, that were coming out in 1999, like his remix of Brainbug's Rain, or any of his Veronica remixes, any of his big tracks that were a hit from 99 to 2001, they all use that same Johnny Vicious synth to some extent. My buddy that's friends with him, or acquainted with him rather, said that Johnny used to use some kind of retro Yamaha synth to do that. And I think it was the same synth that you would hear in a lot of Little John's hip hop records, like the ones with the big synths. The Little John record where he's like, yeah, like that, where that's the actual hook. If you listen to that, that's like a Johnny Vicious synth. And what I'm saying here is that whatever York was using is probably the same piece that Johnny Vicious had in his studio. And it's for good reason. It's a damn good synth. So this is Reachers of Civilization, the original mix, and a great way to start off the CD. Now, track 4 on the CD is by this artist here. This is Mark Vision, and the track is called Time Update. Check out like how kind of like cool and tacky at the same time this cover is. Turn it up right side up for you. Yeah, it's just like orange on yellow. My copy is actually in really good shape. I just got this one in recently. I was waiting for this to come in so that I could do the episode. Time Update. Oh wait, I'm sorry. It's not Time Update. It's Time Gate. One of the mixes on the CD is called the Update mix, but that's actually mislabeled. If you look at it on here, I'll show you. You see for track 4, Mark Vision, Time Gate, Update. It's not actually the Update version that's on the CD. Somebody made a mistake there. It's the original mix. The original mix is the one I love, and for me, it comes down to the big sweeping synth pad that's in the break. That pad to me is like the signature sound of this entire CD. So like if I was gonna make a trailer for this CD, I would just include the breakdown that's in here for Time Gate. Just that alone. I mean, it's a great track, but there's something magical about that synth pad that I was talking about that just makes you feel like you're soaring. And now up to track 5 on the CD, it's BT Brian Transo. Is that how you say his name? BT Transo. With his track Mercury and Solace. This is, I think, the best overall track on the entire CD. The girl's vocal in this absolutely crushes it. One thing to note, the original mix of Mercury and Solace isn't called the original mix. It's called the first mix, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that on any other record, labeling a mix as the first mix instead of the original mix. But man, it, like I said, it comes down to that vocal, and there's a segment in the track where the vocalist is singing "Reach Out for Me," and there's a gate on her voice, and it kind of like chops off into infinity. Man, that is some of the best like creative vocal work, and like I always loved the gated synths and the gated vocals that were in the classic trance. That goes down well in a big room. It's a good sound. I think it's underused in modern times. I mean, if you wanted to make a cool sounding vocal in modern times, I mean, just put a gate on it, and it's like pretty much if the girl's singing or if the guy's singing well and you chop it up, it's gonna sound good. So yeah, Mercury and Solace has got to be one of BT's biggest tracks ever in the trance realm. I know he does ambient as well, but for me, like I said, the best track on the entire CD in terms of overall quality, certainly 5 stars, and I think most people would agree with me.
Go with you.
Track 7 on the CD is a bit of a sleeper. Let me get it out for you here. It's featured on this Series 100, and the artist that I'm featuring for you here is Gypsy, right here in the upper right corner. The track is called I Trance You, and it was remixed by Papa and Gilby. So when I was first going through this CD, I've known Papa and Gilby records for a long time. For me, they're some of the best progressive house producers that ever did it. So if you were gonna like zone in on a catalog and say, man, I really like this sound, I'm gonna try to buy all these because I think they're great. Like a Papa and Gilby catalog to have on your shelf, to have like a little section of that dedicated to them, I think is totally worth it, because I mean they might have 1 or 2 tracks that are down in like the 3.5 star out of 5, but almost everything they do is like a 4 star and above, in my opinion. They were just extremely talented producers. This is the most progressive record that I think you'll find on the ISOS Volume 1 CD. It's very close to being progressive house. I saw it labeled as progressive trance and trance on Discogs. I think if you labeled this as progressive house, you'd probably get half the people to agree with you, and maybe the other half would say it's progressive trance. But it's got some really badass elements in it. The track, as it gets towards the end, has a very strong lead synth that comes in after the last breakdown. I didn't feature that in the sample. I actually wanted to capture the intro because I thought that it had a great middle bass element. This is one of those tracks where like the beginning, the first 3 or 4 minutes to me is like the most captivating because I just love how that middle bass is just pumping. Like it's just ripping so hard. Like it puts energy into the speakers, into the room, into your feet. Like you can't resist the pull of that. And finally, my last pick for this record is by a duo known as Technique. It's two girls from the UK doing the vocals. And I'm assuming that Matt Derry here, you can see it's the Matt Derry mixes and Brothers in Rhythm. I'm assuming that Matt Derry did the instrumental underneath them. This is a very nostalgic record for me. When I went to college in 1999, and I luckily had a roommate that was in trance. He was the one that got me listening to Oakenfold's mixes and exposed me to a whole different area of club music that I hadn't heard at that point in my life. I was mostly listening to like New York and New Jersey influence from going to clubs like Shampoo in Philadelphia. So they never played trance there ever, ever, ever. It was more of like big room house and big vocals and anthems and such. So he was bringing like basically like a European influence into our dorm room, and he would play me tracks like this, and this definitely reminds me of my freshman year in school, which I have very nostalgic and positive feelings towards. Sun is Shining, absolutely monster vocal. The way that Derry works the synths in the later phases of the track, where it's just like an absolute cascade and overwhelming sensation. You cannot deny that this is an absolute monster of a record. I don't even really have much else to add about it, but the beautiful cover art that you can see here is reflective of the vibe of the music, and to me, Matt Derry and Technique, they knocked it out of the park. All right, and thank you for listening. This concludes my ISOS Volume 1 influence. Like I said, I have volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you like this concept and you want me to do other CDs in the series, let me know. I would be happy to come back and do some influence videos for those as well. And let me know if any of these tracks remind you of your earlier years. Tell me about your experiences. Feel free to share down in the comments anything that you think would add to this episode. Thank you very much, and take care.